You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. People who know that among the different hats I wear, one is being the global editor of Ms. Magazine, and they sometimes ask me, what is Ms. thinking and doing in this political crisis? They're hungry for leadership, for sensible, effective leadership, and they cast about for it. Well, I often answer, well, read it and see. But I usually reply, they're doing everything. Only inactivity doesn't count, whether from fear, excessive caution, calamity thinking, giving up in despair, hiding, or any other excuse. We can certainly still, at the very least, write letters, make phone calls to our congressional representatives, honor boycotts, talk about the situation this country's in, currently showing itself by mass protests, largely very peaceful, first in Los Angeles and now spreading across the country. We can talk to friends, and we can talk to the undecided, and we can talk to adversaries if we have a stomach for it. We want to look at ourselves in the mirror in the morning without shame. And we want to be able to tell our children, if we have them, or other young people in general in the future, what we did in such a time as this. It's dark. For me, after a lifetime of engagement at age 83 and battling Parkinson's disease, my activism is somewhat, shall I say, restricted. This makes me furious, and I chafe at my limitations ceaselessly. But my books do continue. And yes, I'm still writing them, and they still are being published. There are still articles and essays and cries from the heart and the brain. There are still poems. And all of these circumvent the radar and go straight to the readers' and hearers' hearts. So I'm privileged, at least for a while longer, to have such glorious, great means of communication, and yes, even of organizing. And there is this powerful podcast that goes into more than 100 countries, flowing into your ears and into your hearts. Today, aptly, my special guest is Kathy Spillar, the co-founder and executive director of the Feminist Majority Foundation and the executive editor of Ms. Magazine. And she, better than anyone else, can tell us what Ms., now 53 years old, and still the flagship of the women's movement, has done, is doing, will do in this tumultuous time to cast its light far and wide. In December 2001, the Feminist Majority Foundation became the sole publisher of Ms. Magazine, which was founded in 1972. Spillar oversaw relocation of the iconic magazine's editorial operations from New York to Los Angeles, and in 2005 was named executive editor. Under her oversight, Ms. has increased its investigative reporting, and today is one of the larger print and online feminist news sites, reaching readers across the globe. With her direction, Ms. has developed an innovative digital textbook resource as well, the Ms. Classroom, covering current feminist topics and activism and used by instructors for all levels of women's and gender studies in hundreds of college and university programs across the country. I'll return with an in-depth interview with Kathy Spillar in just a moment, after this brief message. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMClive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Kathy, dear colleague, comrade in arms in the trenches, Kathy Spillar. Welcome back to Women's Media Center Live. I'm so glad that you're here.
Oh, thank you, Robin. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, my dear, here's the thing. Since he who shall not be named got into the White House, we everybody is looking for leadership, and some are finding it and some are not. But a lot of people ask me all the time, well, "What does Ms. say? Well, what is Ms. saying?" They say, and I say, "Well, you should read it," and and that stops them up sometimes. But what does Ms. in that sense recommend, or what panoply of actions are we saying? I speak as the global editor, so I looking at the rest of the world, which is not a happy place, in large and small part due to he who shall not be named. But I'm going to just let you loose because you are, among many other hats that you wear, the executive editor of Ms. So what does that leadership and the leadership of the Feminist Majority Foundation tell us we could be doing, we should be doing now?
What I will say to your listeners is whatever they can do, that is something. Not to think that their voice is not needed, not to think their bodies at demonstrations are not needed, not to think that it is a waste of time to reach out to their member of Congress, the Senate or the House, state legislatures, not to think that this is hopeless. It is not. It is not. And one of the key things people need to internalize is this was not a landslide election for the Republicans.
No, God, no.
It was a very narrow in places, and so they've got to understand that there is no real mandate here. That what is happening right now out of the White House and in Congress is very unpopular with the American public. Follow the polling. Yeah, and we report the polling because we want people to understand this is not what people voted for. We can dissect the election. I've got, opinions based on research, but whatever anyone can do is important to do. It could not be more important to be part of this resistance, which is massive. And has to be fueled constantly by people's involvement. So in Ms. Magazine and Ms. Online and Ms. Studios, for example, we're constantly talking about the demonstrations that are planned, the lawsuits that are being launched against the actions coming out of the White House, and the advocacy around our core issues, whether it's in, the Congress or part of this budget bill right now. It could not be more important that people are registering their opposition to what is being proposed. So I would say nothing that people can do is not important. It is all important because it takes grassroots opposition, it takes litigation, it takes politics, it takes elections. We have elections this fall and we have elections next year that will determine the course of this country going forward. So stay informed with Ms. And obviously with your podcast, but it's critical that people stay informed and do something.
Well, yeah. When people ask me, well, what is Ms. doing? I say everything. Just, you name it, and we're doing it. And it doesn't stop there. It then goes on, and we invent new things to do.
That's right.
But it's what happens, I think, is that people. Well, first of all, there's the media input, and which is not what it should be still, and
Right.
forever. And then and we at the Women's Media Center are trying everything that we can on our side to right that. But then there is the kind of miasma. Remember, it's an old Jimmy Carter word that settles over people, where they think, well, you're quite right, Kathy. They think, oh well, it's there's no use, and they're either waiting for 4 years from now, which is
Hmm.
foolish because there's J.D. Vance just poised in the wings, and besides, even if he weren't, we need to start yesterday.
That's right.
And but there's real despair in the country, and uh, um,
Hmm.
I understand it, because there were 2 days after the election when I could barely get out of my bed. I mean, I crashed, and I couldn't believe that I had got all the way to my 80s after a lifetime of activism, and this is what's happening in my 80s.
Hmm.
I couldn't process it.
But
Anyway,
as you,
go on.
Robin, it's a good point, because you started your activism, what, in your 30s, 40s,
Even
even
younger.
before that.
That's right.
This is a multiple generation fight.
That's right.
You know, we have a real opposition. I mean, there is an opposition to women's full equality, and to LGBTQ equality and racial equality. So we have to understand that, we're not tilting at windmills. There is a real opposition. And, you make gains forward, and then there's a backlash, there's
Right.
pushback.
Right.
But we are constantly heading in the right direction as long as we stay engaged and involved and understand what's happening in the bigger picture. I think it's very critical that we not really, succumb to the feeling that it's hopeless. It is not hopeless. And, this country and women around the world have gone through darker times in many ways. I mean, this is a dark period in this
Yeah.
country's history. There is no question. When historians, and future generations look back, this is a dark history and a lot of cruelty.
It is.
But it's up to us to steer the ship in a different direction. It's up to us. And, as I said, other generations have faced darker times in other parts of the world. And we have to take heart from those struggles and learn from those struggles. And the first lesson is you don't give up.
That's
You
right.
don't give up and you don't give in. And
Yeah.
it is the importance, as you said, of feminist media. It is the importance of what Ms. is doing. It's the importance of the Women's Media Center, because too much of media leaves us out, certainly
Yeah.
is not looking at what's happening through a feminist lens.
No.
So it's very critical that we continue the work at Ms. and Women's Media Center to impact other media, and to make sure that people have a real critique of what is happening, not some memes on social media, or
Yeah.
whatever the New York Times or the Washington Post says is happening. We have to get to the bottom of it. And too much of the media, as you said, is reporting in a very superficial way
Yeah.
about what is happening, what the impacts of some of these policies are going to be,
Oh,
short term
God.
and long term. And we have to be sure that people understand and also have a way to take action. And, it's what Ms. has always done. It not only has been a key part over these last 53 years of naming the problems, defining the problems, investigating the problems,
Mm.
but also putting forward ideas and solutions and strategies. And it
And
could not
sometimes
be more
solving the
important.
problems, and
Well,
sometimes,
absolutely.
you know,
Yes. Yes. So, people should take heart. The other thing I will say is that among the youngest generation of feminists, they're even more determined. The
yes.
young women, especially, they're more determined than ever to win their own equality and bodily autonomy. And they voted their interests in this last election. They will do so again if they have the information that they need. And so that's part of what we have to be sure that we do is that people understand the importance of elections, the importance of voting, what the voting suppression tactics are of our opponents so that they can overcome those, what the issues are that will be impacted by an election, and that they take heart in understanding, as I said at the beginning of this, that this last election was not a landslide, and we can correct course. We have that opportunity not only this fall, but in 2026 in terms of elections, and people got to get involved because it's going to take all of us to turn this ship around.
It is. You're right. It does. I mean, I think where some of the deep depression comes from is that environmentalist and science in the environmental realm has pointed out that we have about 5 more years until it becomes unreversible, the damage done to the planet. So people look at that and then they freak out. But 5 years is still 5 years, and nobody has a ticking clock going, and we'll do what we can, which is what we've always done, and it has sort of worked before enough to get us to here, and the here is not that hideous a place because we can go on from here.
Right.
You know.
And the outcome of the 2026 midterms is key to this, because in addition to the lawsuits that are launched against these mandates coming out of the White House to boost petroleum industry and to damage the alternative fuels industry and the alternative energy. Yeah, I was just listening to a whole piece this morning on NPR about how damaging all this is going to be. But in 2026, we will have the opportunity to elect a Congress that could be the stopgap on these measures. I mean, part of our problem right now, obviously, is that we have a party not only in control of the White House, but Congress, both houses. And so there's no checks and balances except for the courts so far. And so that's why litigation is so important, boosted by grassroots organizing. So all the grassroots organizing will also lead into organizing for the election. So people need to understand that in 2026, we have a chance for a real possibility to have a counterforce in the federal government that can help stop more severe things from happening and can also restore, for example, some of the incentives for the electric car industry and incentives for investing in green technology. All of that right now is endangered, but we can restore it. So, and feminists have always led these fights, as you know, Robin, in the environmental field. Always. Exactly. So it couldn't be more important that feminists stay engaged, informed, and taking action.
Kathy, let's talk about young women for a bit, because I know they're very front and center with the magazine and with the foundation. We hear all the time in the media now about men and young men and how men were really pissed off at the last election, and they were pissed off at the presence of so many women, and young men in particular were really furious, and how we all should immediately drop whatever we're doing and go and, I don't know what, be some kind of handmaids to men. And and yet the young women that I'm in touch with, the young women, but then they're self-selecting, that's true, but they're really hot to trot. I mean, they are ready to make feminism. Talk about the Ms. Classroom, talk about the work that the Foundation Feminist Majority and Ms. has been doing with young women.
Yes, young women are going to help save this country. There's no question. And the young men who are feminists, but young women are more likely to be feminists. They're more likely to be involved in these movements, by the way. And their activism comes out of their involvement with these issues and these movements. They voted by significant margins for Democrats up and down the ballot. Sure. You're right. It was young men who swung towards Trump. And the Republicans under false messaging in many ways. The problems that seem more unique to young men, including higher suicide rates, for example, than young women, and higher dropout rates out of high school and out of college than young women. They were fed a false sense of how to solve those problems.
Sure.
And unfortunately, they fell for it. I think that they've also been among the first to show declining support now for what they voted for, declining support for
That's
Trump and the
interesting. I hadn't
Republicans.
heard.
Oh,
I hadn't
yeah.
heard.
But young women hung in there because they understood the consequences. Abortion rights and reproductive autonomy was a major driver
Yeah.
of their votes. I mean, it was the top issue for younger voters. So, so making sure that they're engaged and informed. And one of the things the Feminist Majority Foundation has done, and now in partnership with our Ms. Classroom program, is to make sure that young feminists on college campuses have the support they need to organize and to understand the importance of elections and to organize around elections. In addition to
That's
organizing
brilliant.
around, yeah, I mean, they already organize around issues of violence against women and sexual assault and some key issues that impact their lives, but also how do you organize to make bigger change in the country. And so we invest very heavily during election years in making sure that young feminists on the campuses know how they can get engaged and involved. And Ms., of course, is a part of that because Ms. is a key information source. And we're so thrilled that our Ms. Classroom program is now going to be bolstered by access through university libraries and public libraries to the entire 53 years of the magazine that is being digitized by ProQuest, which is one of the major companies that supplies, content for libraries.
Kathy, that is so wonderful. For years and years and years, I've worried that there were gaps in the records and they never were kept as well as they could be because nobody in the beginning years, thought it would last 50 and more years, I mean, we didn't know we were making history. I think some of us suspected it, but we didn't know it. We didn't know it for sure with our little feet planted firmly on the ground. And so we never kept those. We were always, oh, yes, how can we look that up?
Right.
And that this is going to be digital. This is fantastic. Oh,
And it's going to
bravo.
be free to use. Once the public library or the university library has purchased the digital library from ProQuest, it's free to use. And it's completely searchable by subject, by year, by author, by all the different ways you can search an archive like this. And how important it is to understand history, or herstory, if you will, of this contemporary movement to inform our way forward. I mean, how can you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't, it's like
no.
if you can't see it, you can't be it. The same is true if you can't imagine it, you can't be it. You can't, we need to thrust our minds forward and conceive of other ways and learn of other ways that have already vanished in the past and that we're unvanishing so that we can then imitate them and going forward. I mean, it's not a genius solution. It's very simple in a sense, but it's very necessary.
Oh, and the work that you've done as our global editor in prior administrations and currently is key too, because understanding how feminists are fighting for their rights, for women's fundamental rights everywhere, is a very important part of understanding the world and how we're going to move forward. And we share ideas through this global connection to feminists. And because of the online, our msmagazine.com online, we can share their stories and they can share our stories and our reporting and our analysis. And so
that's so important. It is so important because, I hear it less now than I used to, much less. But there used to always be a kind of trope that was, well, feminism is a Western invention, or feminism is an American thing. It doesn't relate to us being the global South, or us being women in poorer countries, or us being anywhere not in the U.S. And I was always the one saying, no, 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 that's not true. And Sisterhood is global, both the book and anything else I did, and now the institution is emphasizing the fact that there have always been, excuse me, feminist fight backs in every society, in every country, in every culture, going back as far as we can calculate. I mean,
Right.
and they're everywhere. They were in ancient China. They were in ancient Greece. They were in, so all you have to do is find it, and then the women catch fire. But without a record, I mean, a record makes it a lot easier. I'll tell you that.
Very much. And Robin, your point is well taken too. Understanding how long this fight has been going on
Yeah.
is very important to put everything in that's happening right now into perspective.
You think?
This too we will get past.
Yes.
To think that our foremothers, had to do all of this without any modern communications, without any rights, including the right to be free from, violence in their households or sexual violence or bodily autonomy, the ability to even control your fertility. How much further along we are and how much better positioned we are to make this fight. And I think understanding that, that
That's crucial.
helps, right? Lift
No,
our spirits.
that's absolutely crucial. Oh, God. Well, so you want to point to two or three specific areas, Kathy, where you think that women should be putting a lot of energy or some energy or most energy?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say yes.
I thought so. That's my girl.
Right. Very important elections. There's no question. And so wherever you are, it doesn't matter if you're in a red state or blue state or whatever age you are, there is something you can do to boost the feminist vote, the gender gap vote, but also the feminist vote in elections, whether it's getting people registered, forming discussion groups so people understand what's going on. You can use Ms. for that. Mobilizing, getting behind whatever candidate of your choice. Door to door is still important. Community events are still important. Town halls are still important. So getting engaged in the political sphere is very important. Obviously, keeping informed through feminist media is very important because we're going to tell it like it is. We're going to not only give perspective on what's happening, but we're going to also suggest strategies and highlight ideas that can get us to the next stage.
Yes, and the
And then,
magazine's a very important place for that because it comes up with
yes,
things that you haven't thought of in your area or terrain, Go ahead, Kathy.
exactly. And we put a lot of the magazine on msmagazine.com. So you can also go there if you don't have the physical magazine, but having the physical magazine, of course, I think is still important. And then the third area I would emphasize, and I think it is important, and Ms. was reporting on this from day one, is the Equal Rights Amendment. For people to understand that it has been ratified, it has met the only two requirements that the Constitution makes for a new amendment, which is, a 2/3 vote by Congress when it was passed out of Congress, and that was 1972, and 3/4 of the states, that's 38 states, had voted to ratify. Our problem is we now need Congress to clear up the confusion around this time limit that was inserted into the preamble, not to the ERA itself, but to the preamble that is the controversy. And the only decision-making body in this country that can settle that is Congress, not the courts and not the president, not the archivist. It is up to Congress to pass a simple resolution that recognizes that the Equal Rights Amendment has met the requirements to be the 28th Amendment and is, in fact, the 28th Amendment. And without constitutional equality, which is the highest law of this land, it leaves us vulnerable to what's happening now.
Yes.
These abortion bans in the different states, the attacks on affirmative action, the attacks on women in gender studies programs, the attacks on food assistance program, the SNAP program, which disproportionately is women and their children, or Medicaid, which is, again, disproportionately women and their children. So these attacks that we are fighting back we could be in a much stronger place if we had the Equal Rights Amendment. So I'm hoping that, that stays the North Star for the feminist movement writ large. It certainly has been for Ms. And again, the very first reporting on the Equal Rights Amendment was in Ms. And we've continued that throughout the entire 53 years, and we'll keep going until the Equal Rights Amendment is safely in the Constitution and we can rely on it.
Oh, bless you, Kathy. Take a minute and tell me a personal moment or story or something when you realized really fully. Was it after the feminist majority inherited Ms., or was it before, or when you fully realized the power of that and your being really, in a sense, at the center of it? Because it's amazing. It's amazing. Women still write to me from all over the world, and they write about Ms. as well. So
yes,
I congratulate you, but I'd love to know how you feel about that.
Well, it was one of the first things that people recommended that I should be reading when I got involved in the movement. I got involved in the National Organization for Women in the Los Angeles chapter in 1983. And I can remember still people saying, "Oh my goodness, you've got to read Ms. Magazine." And I honestly had not heard about it. I always was a feminist from the time I can remember, but I didn't discover Ms. until then, and immediately went to a feminist bookstore here in Los Angeles and got the magazine and subscribed, and have always followed it. I understand the importance the important role that Ms. has played in this movement from the day it was first published. It was a way that feminists everywhere in the country could connect, and it's part of a key community that has been around Ms. since day one. It's been a critical communications vehicle, but also not just going from Ms. to its readers, but coming from readers to Ms. And to this day, we hear from readers all over the country and all over the world who tell us what's happening in their area or tell us how important Ms. has been to them. And that's why we've been so determined to bring Ms. to college classrooms and high school classrooms and to the public, is the importance of what appears in Ms. And now increasingly MsMagazine.com and our Ms. Studios work. But it's important to reach people where they are. And it has given me great joy being able to help guide the last, I guess it's 22 years, or 24 now, of this magazine, this very important institution. Very proud of it. And thank you, Robin, for everything that you have done for Ms.
Well, nonsense.
Very important.
I'm so proud of the magazine, and I'm so proud of the magazine under your tutelage as well. And the way that it's been continued and the way that it has been increased, and it's very moving, and it really is a story of women in the 19th and 20th centuries and 21st, if we go on this way. What the hell? Why not?
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And take another minute and talk just for a second about joining the Ms. community, Kathy, if you will.
Well, it could not be more important at this time, of course, in my opinion, but to connect to more and more feminists, the information that we provide through Ms., they can go to MsMagazine.com and join the Ms. community. They can join and get the magazine. They can join either through an app or they can just support the work financially. But we will stay in touch with them. And I do think that getting the magazine is important for this reason. You can pass it around. You really can't pass around a digital post.
Right.
You can pass around a podcast, and that's important. And we do now have Ms. Studios and create podcasts on a regular basis.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Ms. Studios. What?
Yes.
Talk a minute about that.
The executive producer of Ms. Studios is Michelle Bratcher Goodwin, who is a leading constitutional scholar at Georgetown Law, a specialist in reproductive health and justice, globally as well as here in the U.S. She oversees all of the creation of the podcast. We have a regular podcast called On the Issues with Michelle Goodwin. We also have a quick and dirty one that we call 15 Minutes of Feminism. If that's all you have, we can get you up to date on a current issue. But we also have guest podcasters that create whole series. Dorothy Roberts on her groundbreaking book, Torn Apart, about the racial discrimination within the child welfare system in this country, did a whole podcast series interviewing some of the women that formed the basis of her book and her analysis about the child welfare system and what needed to happen. So we have one that's Gen Z by a young podcaster. So people can find just about any interest area, and it's constantly expanding. So joining the Ms. community is very important. We also have events, both digital or virtual events rather, and live events that we want people to know about. So joining the Ms. community is very important. But as I said, the magazine, you can pass around. After you finish reading it, you can give it to your friends, to your daughters, to your sisters, to the men in your life. And it's something that can help inform an even larger group than just those who get it directly in their mailbox. But we publish 4 times a year.
I always say it's living tissue that you're handing out.
That's right. Exactly.
It really is. Oh, Kathleen, thank you so much. You are, as always, a source of support and information and energy, and I just adore you. So thank you. Thanks for being with us on Women's Media Center Live.
Oh, well, thank you, Robin.
It's time for another short break, but I'll be back in just a moment with some fighting words. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Insurrectionists. Now there's a fighting word. Los Angeles, city of the angels. Angelinos were the first citizens this time to peacefully demonstrate in huge crowds, way outnumbering the few pro-violence agitators. Los Angeles, because California is a sanctuary state and boasts the largest 10.6 million immigrant population in the United States, a population from all parts of the world, and one deliberately and viciously targeted by the Trump administration. First, it was Los Angeles demonstrating in protests over sweeping deportation arrests that have been going on for days and days. Then it was Dallas, a city that's part of another border state. Then New York, another sanctuary city, so mixed and populous that it seems to border on the whole world, with a veritable babel of languages that sure sound like a border city. And Chicago, and Denver, and Boston, Seattle, Spokane, San Antonio, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Portland, San Francisco, Las Vegas, Milwaukee. People marching against Trump policies of deportation, but more and more added in are other issues and other constituencies. environment defenders, abortion rights defenders, infuriated women, men of color, citizens against arbitrary imprisonment, blatant corruption, official lawlessness, and much, much more. The protests balance precariously on the line between fizzling out or, depending on you and me, calming into peaceable, lawful action, or, on the other hand, between being provocatively crushed by mass arrests and, again depending on you and me, then further blooming into a vast, united front. Go to nokings.org, online, nokings.org, for a staggering U.S. map that shows a dense blizzard of places where marches and demonstrations are planned for this weekend and the following days, all extremely well organized, with instructions for marshals and hosts, legal advice, ACLU contacts, the works, and all of it profoundly and deliberately anti-violence. If you've been wondering what to do and when to do it, here is your chance. Is this it? Is this the moment? Are we ready for this yet? Historically speaking, is it too early? But is anyone ever ready for deep change? Images flash before my eyes. What, am I waiting for a moment when the National Guard and 700+ Marines take the Posse Comitatus Act seriously and refuse to arrest or harm their own people? When they throw down their weapons or even turn them around at their own commanders? When they actually join the crowds of demonstrators? When their outrage at being so abused and misused becomes so intense that they refuse to obey their commanders? And when that outrage travels up the ranks to the very top? Or am I wandering around in an Aaron Sorkin fantasy script? Is this that moment yet? I'm torn between longing and dread. The man who has stolen and defaced our republic terms these demonstrators, us, insurrectionists. The same man who issued a blanket pardon to hundreds of self-declared actual insurrectionists, since insurrection means to move against an established order by violence. People who were self-declaring themselves actual insurrectionists were white supremacists, outlaw militias, neo-Nazis, among the 10,000 people who, on January 6, 2021, stormed the Capitol of the United States with guns and rifles and batons and battering rams and noxious sprays, who invaded Congress, who broke, trashed, and shattered doors and windows of the Capitol, who defecated in the main chamber of the House of Representatives, on the floor of the House, who broke into and trashed the offices of the Speaker of the House, sought out and vowed to end the Vice President's life, and attacked police, leaving in their wake cops suffering heart attacks, strokes, and deaths, and persisted in such behavior for 7 solid hours while the President did nothing. 5 people died during or after that event. This, you understand, despite the mob declaring itself as such, was, according to Trump, not an insurrection. But congresswomen, judges, and other citizens who have protested in myriad ways against this administration are, according to this president, not only insurrectionists, but dangerous ones. No one knows how this will end. It is a nightmare from which I cannot wake. This regime has already violated our Constitution blatantly. Are we inching toward a civil war? Are we dangerous? Are we dangerous yet? Are we dangerous enough yet? Are we insurrectionists? It is yet to be seen, city by city, what that will actually mean.
And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on social media at The Robin Morgan. You can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net, and you can find my new novel, Parallax, and my just-out new book of poems, Harvesting Darkness, wherever books are sold. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer, as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer for this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us next time on Women's Media Center Live.